Good day, podcast listeners. My name is Tom Pence, your host, and you have stumbled across More Than a Funeral, Voices of the Red River Valley, the podcast powered by Corsmo Funeral and Cremation Service of Moorhead, Minnesota. You might be wondering, what in the world is a funeral home doing with a podcast? And I still have to ask myself that same question every day. But our podcast is going to be pretty simple. It's going to be informal, strictly informational, and it's going to be all about the kinds of topics that matter to everyday people. We're going to be talking about community life, practical guidance, personal stories, and the work being done around us every day. The things that often don't make the headlines but still make a difference. Our aim is to have each episode be just a relaxed conversation meant to inform, encourage, and keep you connected to what's happening right here at home. So, grab a cup of Lutheran Church coffee to go with that Scotcheroo bar and enjoy the conversation. We're glad you're here. Good afternoon, podcast listeners. You have tuned in to another episode of More Than a Funeral, Voices of the Red River Valley, and my name's Tom Pence, your host, and today we're going to be talking about a really cool place in Moorhead called Farm in the Dell of the Red River Valley. It came to my attention about 4 years ago, roughly, and if you have not heard of it before, it's really I would call it a working farm. It's got a very meaningful mission. The farm, if you want to call it that, provides opportunities for individuals with developmental disabilities. Try to say that 3 times. Developmental disabilities to learn skills. They do real work and allows them to be a part of something productive and rewarding. Out there at the farm, the participants are known as garden engineers. So as we're talking today, when we refer to the engineers, that's who we're referring to. But they help grow the fresh produce that's shared with families throughout the community. And joining me today is Matt Larson. He is the executive director of Farm in the Dell. I met Matt about 1.5 years ago when I was doing a little volunteer work out there myself. But Matt's going to share the story of how the farm got started, how it operates day to day, the nuts and bolts, and the impact it's having on individuals and families throughout the Red River Valley, and not just the participants, but the people that volunteer there too, and also the people out in the community that are the benefactors of a lot of the bounties, should we say. So, Matt, thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tom. I appreciate it.
You bet. One of the mission statement, and I got a lot of great information off your website, but the mission statement, kind of summarize it, is turning disabilities into abilities. I think
that's right. Transforming disabilities into abilities we've kind of narrowed it down to a very short and memorable statement that kind of defines who we are.
Right. We don't need 3 paragraphs.
Right.
So for somebody who has never heard of Farm in the Dell, and again, it came to my mind about 4 years ago as part of the Giving Hearts Day. For someone who's never heard of Farm in the Dell, what is it? Putting you right on the spot.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are, like you mentioned earlier, we are a working farm. We sit on 25 acres now, just north of Moorhead, about 5 miles. And primarily we are growing produce, like any normal produce you might have in your backyard garden, tomatoes, beans, potatoes, sweet corn, all the way to like kohlrabi and radishes and some other things that maybe the typical person wouldn't grow in their garden. But so we are a working garden, and from the bare dirt through harvest in the fall time, we have our garden engineers, which I appreciate you defining that term for us early on. But our garden engineers are going to be involved in every part of the process. So we exist in order to employ these adults with disabilities. Yeah. Like vocation is such a big thing, a purposeful thing. And so to have a vocation of something meaningful where you see from the very beginning stages of a product through the very end where we're handing it off into the hands of customers, the garden engineers are a part of the entire thing and get to be a part of it and part of the community and doing valuable work, and it's meaningful and rewarding. So yeah.
Awesome. One of the statistics I pulled off your website talks about, why gardening. We all, I've been to grocery stores that employs people with developmental disabilities, restaurants, things like that. But according to your website, the U.S. Census Bureau says 66% of individuals with independent living disabilities are unemployed. And when they are able to get employed, employers can get a certification, but they're able to pay them less than minimum wage.
Yes, that's right.
And from what I'm understanding, Farm in the Dell exists to change that.
Right. We want to not only employ our people, but to offer meaningful work as well. Like the beauty of the garden is there's so many skills and different aspects. Every day you come out, you're doing something different. Yeah. You're not doing the same task over and over and over again. So you're learning all sorts of different things. You're learning everything there is to know about gardening, right. But it's also the social aspect of it and working with other people and coming on time and clocking in and taking your 15-minute break and getting back out there. And sometimes it's hot and buggy and difficult, and yet still kind of pushing through when it's difficult. And those are valuable skills that many of us, we learn, when we're 15, 16 years old in high school and you get your first job, to the career that you have now. Many of us, we define who we are by what we do. Right. If I meet someone, one of the first questions I would ask is, well, what do you do? What do you do? We're offering that opportunity for these individuals. Because for many of them, the question, what do you do? Well, 68% of them don't have meaningful work that defines who they are. Right. Not that we should be defined by our job, right. But it is a meaningful part of who we are. And so to be able to offer a vocation, right. Not just a job and a paycheck, but a vocation that's meaningful and a wage that is competitive with a lot of the other businesses in town. And it's a great program, great process, great place to be.
Right on. And it gives them a purpose, as you say.
Oh, absolutely.
So just let's go way back to the origin of Farm in the Dell. I'll just cue it up a couple of things and I'll just let you roll with it. But back in 2012,
that's right.
A group of parents came together and they basically just said, they have children with some disabilities and they just kind of have to say, what are we going to do with it? And it sounds like they took a road trip out to Montana.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I'll jump back even further. I think it was in the 1970s. Wow. Okay. There was a family who had a son who was going through the public school system and they were graduating and they were looking for, well, what's our son going to do? Because there's not a lot of opportunities for them. And they started the first Farm in the Dell in Montana. And so there's about a dozen of them across the United States and Canada. And we're not linked in any way other than name and purpose. Right. And so this family in Moorhead, and there were a couple families, but they had a son, kind of the same situation, was graduating, and they were beginning to wonder, what is he going to do? There's all sorts, our school systems are great with offering opportunities and employment and activities to get kids to learn and experience these different things. But once they graduate, right. They kind of found there's just a drop off there. Mm-hmm. And now it's completely on the family to find out, well, what's this young person going to do? And so this first family in 2012 began to ask that question, and they found Farm in the Dell, and they went out to Montana and visited and saw the beauty of the garden and people working in the dirt and in the soil, and also outside where it's quiet, it's open, it's safe. All these things, environmental things that really lend themselves to individuals that might have sensory issues, right. So to be able to go out into a garden and outside of town and work side by side with people and build community and learn skills, they just immediately saw that as a huge opportunity. So they came back in 2012 and started the 501c3, which became Farm in the Dell. And that's why our tag of the Red River Valley, because there's several Farm in the Dells that exist in North America. So 2012, they started on a small half-acre plot off I-94 in Fargo. In fact, it's a Growing Together garden now, which is another nonprofit in the community that builds gardens right by the Catalyst Medical Center.
Yep.
That's where they started, all volunteer led, board run and volunteers. And 2015, we got a major gift, which was going to bring us out to North Moorhead. Which ultimately ended up being the 25 acres that we're now on, and the ability to hire.
Did you say 25 acres?
25 acres.
Wow. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not all planted. Right now we plant 11 acres. Okay. But if you ever I grew up on a farm, and we had a garden, and in my mind, as a elementary, high school kid, like getting out and working in the garden, like this garden is huge. Let's plant a smaller garden next year. But
got a lot of weeds here, Dad.
Yeah, even that garden is fractional of the size of what we're working with now. So, yeah.
What's up? You said Western North Dakota. I'm from Western North Dakota. Well, that's technically Western. Yeah. Where are you from in Western North?
So I always say Western North Dakota, but my address has always been South Dakota. It's Lemon, South Dakota, which is a border town. I grew up north of Lemon, on the North Dakota side, but address was always South Dakota.
Sure. Well, some people in our area, and I don't want to alienate anybody, but sometimes people say, "Oh, yeah, I'm from Western North Dakota." It's like I'm from Steele or Valley City. It's like, nah, it's not quite Western.
Yeah, we got to use the river. There's the West River, East River. Right. There's probably a little pride in some of the West River, East River talk that's
true.
I should probably repent of, but
trash talk. So a little of your history, but teaching is your background. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was a teacher for 23 years.
Okay.
So this is really the first school year that I have not been in a classroom. Okay. And I reflected on that, like really my entire life, from going to school and then teaching school. So this is my first school year not being governed by a school calendar or a school bell even. So it's very different.
All right. How did you come upon this position? Not to be too personal.
No, yeah. So we mentioned this original family that went out to Montana. So they have 3 kids. 2 of their kids went to the school that I taught at, and we got to know them really well. And I actually sat in on some of the committee meetings when they were talking about forming this organization, and we had volunteered out there over the years as it had started and attended some events, and we're a CSA shareholder at one point. And then when they needed a director, I got contacted, and just someone asked me, "Hey, have you ever thought about being a part of Farm in the Dell?" And I mean, honestly, no, I'd never thought about it, but it seemed to fit really well with my background, growing up on a farm, and I was a part of another nonprofit organization for a while as the director as well, and so it fit really well, and it was an exciting opportunity that I couldn't pass up.
Makes sense. So talking a little bit about the farm before we talk about the nuts and the bolts of it, but I would imagine, like anything, there were some issues, not problems, but just troubles, but they're meant to be overcome. But were there anything like really standing in the way of doing something like this?
Like as for the beginning, the start of the organization, or for me personally out at the farm?
Maybe let's go back. Yeah, we'll leave you out of it now.
Well, yeah. I think like starting any nonprofit organization, there's kind of that balance of who are we going to be? What are we going to grow to become? Right. Initially when it starts, there's a few of the original families have their kids that are working as volunteers in the garden, just for the community and the ability to be outside and growing a product and celebrating growth and stuff like that, to where we are today, where we're hiring 35 garden engineers that are getting paid a wage, and we're not full time all year round yet. That's another hurdle we would like to tackle at some point. But
no snow removal yet.
Yeah, we don't have the snow removal. Don't have any heat in our buildings. But I think just initially figuring out what's this going to look like, how are we going to sustain it?
Right. Okay.
The families right away are they're working full-time jobs, and then they're working at the garden all summer long too, just to give their kids this opportunity to be outside and working in the garden.
So you're saying probably a lot of the parents also
Yeah.
participate to some extent. There's a term called a garden supervisor,
Yeah.
which gets my attention because I'm not quite at that point yet. But that's actually a paid position where people can work and kind of supervise. Well, supervise, that's what the term is, a handful of the engineers as they do their work.
Yep. And it's really, for me as an employee out at the farm as well,
Right.
When things are happening, you kind of, as you're coming into the year for the first time, you're like, all right, what's this role of a supervisor going to look like? What am I going to be doing? And in reality, you're just working alongside, shoulder to shoulder with engineers and volunteers and other people.
Yep.
And that's kind of the value of what I see of the farm is there's this great photograph. We posted it at one point towards the end of the season, but just a large group of people, and it's volunteers, engineers, supervisors, our farm manager, just shoulder to shoulder. You can't distinguish who's who. Right. They're all working out in the garden. They're all creating this product, big smiles on their faces. There's not you don't necessarily see this delineation or the separation. And that's kind of the value, I think, of the farm and being outside and tackling the common task of the Canadian thistle. It's like we all got to put on the leather gloves and go after this thistle together.
Oh man, last year a few of us here from Corsmo came out, and we were only able to do one shift, and I think it was a row of strawberries.
Yeah.
It was just off there, and it's just like that had not to have been cleaned out for like 4 years.
No, I know. I feel bad sometimes when I tell the volunteers, like, hey, here's this section of strawberries.
That's right.
And they need a lot of help.
They do.
Thank you for coming.
Right.
Please come back after we put you out here. But
The benefit was about 4 of us were working on that. We had our knee pads and our gloves and everything on, and we were working north to south and all over Dodge. But then by the time we got done, we were able to step back and look at it and go like, wow, that's got some potential there.
Yeah.
Plus, you allowed us to go right next door and pick some raspberries.
Yeah, there you go.
There were some perks to that,
Yeah.
so that was cool. So community support has to have been pretty positive from the beginning, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Well,
the
especially with the
community's been
donations.
great.
Yeah.
And I'm learning about the community support in the whole nonprofit world.
Right.
I met so many. There's amazing nonprofits in the Fargo-Moorhead area that are fantastic. So a lot of just support from that community, and then the community itself and businesses. So many of our businesses will pay for their employees to come out and volunteer. Yeah, like there's 8 to 16 hours of work that a lot of companies are going to pay their salaried workers to go find a place to volunteer.
I'll have to talk to Sean about that.
Yeah, there you go.
So when I've come out there, it's kind of neat because you're only you've 11 acres you've developed so far, you said?
We're farming 11.
So I come out there either to pick something up or do something, and I look off in the distance, and I can barely make out. There's like 3 or 4 people over there down on their hands and knees doing something, and I go like, hey, farming's going on.
Yeah.
Beautiful day out there.
Yeah.
So we hope to get back out there again, and we will. But you already touched on really about why it's important for individuals to do this. On the website, it does talk about I call them the 5 points really of why it's important, the why behind your work. And number 1, it teaches motor skills. Just the simple fact of somebody my age bending over and is easy, but getting back up's another story. But it teaches motor skills and coordination, whether it's watering or pulling weeds or hoeing or planting, things like that. Emotional regulation, because to me, again, it's just peaceful. When we were out there, I took 3 or 4 pictures. Not so much of the farm, but of the sky. I'm kind of a nut for cloud formations and things. But it was a beautiful day, blue sky, and there's some kind of storm clouds forming. But for me, I took some great photographs, and to me, that's very calming. So I benefited from that. But it gives them physical activity too. And I don't want to bash anybody, but it's so easy just to sit at home these days.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in the winter. But in the summertime, it's just so easy if you're sitting in front of a TV screen or doing nothing for that matter. But it really gets people out to do something too.
Yeah, one of the neat things just this last summer, we had a 14-year-old who came out consistently once a week. And, you know, when things are busy and people are coming out, you kind of, it's maybe a different person is hosting the volunteers as they're coming in, but you begin to notice like there's this kid that's consistently coming out and working hard in the garden, and then just chatting with him a couple times. He talked about how his mom said like, well, you're going to do something this summer. And so he just got online. He's like, I like gardening and like being outside. And he found us and came once and loved it. And he'd bring his uncle, he'd bring his aunt, he brought his mom, he brought his dad, he brought, he originally from the East Coast, he had family that come out and visit, and he'd bring each one of them out to the garden when they volunteered and worked in the garden. It's fun to meet people like that and see people just out in the garden. It's a benefit to the community, in so many different ways.
And when you need somebody's attention, you can just shout at them.
Yeah.
If they're an acre away, just hey, without getting into trouble. But let's talk a little bit about, the nuts and bolts really and how it works. Obviously, this is your first full season, I think you said. So you probably learned a lot last year.
Absolutely.
What to do, what not to do. But tell us a little bit about, the progression from planting, watering, harvesting, things like that. Yeah, just wherever you feel you want to go.
Yeah, so, it's March now, right? The beginning of March, April 1st. Right in that time, over the winter, we have a garden plan. We've been talking to businesses, individuals, kind of planning out the garden and what we're going to be doing, seeking sponsorships, because we are a nonprofit and we do need donations as well to function and do what we do. So that's a lot of winter stuff. But as April begins to come along, we start getting out into the barn, like the snow is melted and we can get on site again, and we make sure things are cleaned up and ready to go when our engineers start coming out. Last week of April, we'll have a group of probably about 5 engineers that'll come out and work, and we'll prep. And then the first week of May, we kind of hit the ground running, and we'll start putting seeds in the ground, putting up trellises, and we hill a lot of our produce. So we pile up dirt in rows, and that's partly so that it's easy to identify where the good plants are. Like the similar plant that's grown on the top of this hill, those are the ones we want to keep. Everything else we're going to pull and take out. We space everything pretty wide apart, so individuals can with mobility issues can move around easily between the rows. So all that's happening in May.
Okay.
Some things like our corn, we'll have 2 acres of corn. We have a little 4-row planter. We'll plant our corn that way.
Saw that, yeah.
A lot of the other stuff we do, it's you hold a seed packet in one hand and you're putting the seed in the ground with the other. And we'll have little things like push the seed in up to your second knuckle and stuff like that to help us get things at the right depth. And it's not super efficient, but we're working towards being as efficient as we possible, and that isn't the point, So that's kind of May, getting things in the ground and making sure it stays watered and wet. Like I think last summer there was a week mid-May where it was 90 to 100 degrees for about a week. So that was hard on a lot of our little plants as they were starting to come, and that's something we were learning as well. Hey, what do we need to do here? And then into June and even the early parts of July, it's a lot of weed management. So
that's a good term. Good term
management. I don't know if there's weed. We eradicate them as much as possible.
Right.
So a lot of cultivating, whether that's, we put a hoe in everybody's hand and we go out, or we're running tillers or the tractor in some areas. So trying to control weeds. And then as we get to the end of June and July, we really start opening up for public to come out. We have a strawberry patch. And so depending on the year and weather, end of June, early July is when the strawberry patch will start opening, and we'll get 200 people will come out in a day when we pick strawberries.
How many?
200.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's crazy. That was my reaction when someone first told me that as we were getting ready to open the strawberry patch. Like,
Sounds like you have to take a
people.
number. Okay, 1 through 10 coming in now.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Like a lutefisk dinner.
So, yeah. So and flowers are there. And so we want to focus this year. We want to get the community out as much as possible to just experience the garden. We're going to have a big garden map this year at the front of the garden with like some starred highlighted points where you can bring the kids out and discover something out in the garden. We'll have some hands-on activities. So instead of just coming out and looking at our produce and spending 5-10 minutes in our produce and buy something like a grocery store, we want you to come out and experience different parts of the garden, meet some of our garden engineers, have them show you around, and then buy some produce if you want to buy some produce. If not, just come out and experience the garden and be a part of it too.
To me, going back to my childhood, there's not much better than a carrot pulled straight out of the garden, rinsed off with a garden hose and eating it with a little bit of dirt still on it.
Yeah.
You know, that keeps,
it's good for you, right?
It is. It keeps us healthy.
Some of the funnest, like when we're doing strawberry patches and you have a mom is out there with her 2 and 4-year-old, and they come back and they have, half a container full, and some of them are green and some of them are red, but they got red juice running down their face as well. And they had the time of their life. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to be a part of something like that.
Good. Well, that really want to talk a little bit now about really what got my interest to begin with is we call it the CSA program, the Community Supported Agriculture. Is that the correct term for that?
That's where most of our produce, if we're planting 11 acres of garden. There's a lot of produce that can come out of 11 acres of garden. So the vast majority of it is going to go to our community supported agriculture. And so that's right. Even right now, we're selling a CSA. So you can go on our website, find our CSAs, and what that is, starting in the second week of July through September. So it's a 12-week period where you will get a box of produce
once a week, right?
Yep, once a week. So, and you come out and we kind of set out all the produce that's available, and it changes seasonally, which is kind of fun. In the beginning of the season, you'll be radishes and lettuce and a lot of different things. And towards the end of the season, you're getting squash and pumpkins and potatoes, and so
a lot of gourds.
Yeah, a lot of different things throughout the season, and things you maybe aren't even familiar with, which is kind of a fun way to try some different produce and see what you can do with it. And you eat, like this last summer, my family ate way more healthier than we've eaten in a long time, because
great, more cucumbers.
You have this
Dad.
produce and you have to use it up,
That's
and you don't want it to go to waste, and so you're eating more vegetables, and it's and that's where most of our produce is going to go.
Yeah. One of my mom's favorite phrases when we were growing up was, "Here, eat this before it goes bad." And I could see you at home with your kids. Here we got 8 more cucumbers here. Finish them up on your cereal, wherever. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you there. But
no, that's okay.
Yeah, but we participate in the peak share.
Yeah,
it's good for us, just 2 of us. But I made some of the best chili, tomato soup. Like I said, I came out to the farm late in the year. I mentioned this before we started recording. I came out and got a couple of bags of Romas and just made wonderful homemade spicy garlic tomato soup. A bit too much garlic, which that is possible, I found out. But anyway, we got some great vegetables throughout the course of the year. And we meet some of the engineers who are helping some of the volunteers who pass out this. But I kind of interrupted, but tell us a little bit about the full shares and the half shares and maybe the peak share, which is what we do.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned coming out and picking tomatoes. We, besides just the weekly box of produce, there'll be special events that CSA shareholders can participate in. Like before the official community strawberries, we'll invite our CSA shareholders to come out and pick some strawberries. Towards the end of the year, when we have more tomatoes and we know what to do with, our CSA shareholders come out and take as many tomatoes as they want, or squash, some different things like that. So there's a lot of opportunities outside of just the weekly box of produce that a CSA shareholder gets. So there are 3 levels you can purchase. There's a half share and a full share. They're both 12 weeks long. I think we say on the website a half share is 3 to 5 people. We try to make it a healthy 3 to 5 people.
Trust me, it is. Yes.
Yeah. And then a full share, I think we say 5 to 8, something like that. And it would be eating a lot of produce.
Yes, it is.
Those 5 to 8 people for the week. And that's a 12 weeks throughout the harvest season. So the produce is going to change. There might be some things that you're going to see are going to be fairly consistent.
Depending on the growing season.
Yeah, depending on the growing season and what's available and what's growing and stuff like that. The peak share is the other option. So that is a 6-week one. And that'll be about 4 weeks in. Then we're 3 weeks in, and then there'll be 6 weeks. That's kind of our peak harvest season. And then it'll end a little bit earlier than the full and half share. So the full and half share are full 12 weeks. Peak share is a 6-week half share. So it's still the amount of a half share, but only for half the season.
Right on. Well, I just encourage people to sign up for one of those, because if you feel you're getting too much produce, you also have recipes, link to recipes on your website.
Yeah, we do have recipes on our website. We have people share recipes with us all the time. We found a great refrigerator pickle recipe this last year because we had more cucumbers than we know what to do with. So we're, as people park, we sneak cucumbers into their car and then give them a recipe. It's
the old zucchini trick.
The old zucchini trick.
Never leave your car unlocked in the fall. Well, some of talking a little bit about the engineers and a typical day out there at the farm, looking at what you do. I mean, I saw something about prayer huddles. You do something like that kind of from a that spiritual standpoint.
Yeah, so
it's not all just let's get out there and pull some weeds.
Yeah, we're a faith-based organization. That's how we started, and really rooted in.
No pun intended.
Yeah, there you go. It's perfect. Rooted in the first few chapters of the Bible where mankind is made in the image of God. And I've begun to realize, no matter what a person's ability is or who they are, their personality, what they're like they are made in the image of God, and God has made them exactly and perfectly how he wants them. And he knows them perfectly in every way. And so to have all these different people with different abilities that are all working together and being a part of something is awesome. And I think that's how God intended things. And I think our society, we tend to see things a little bit differently. But God has made such a wide variety of people with different skills and who they are, and to be able to come together and work that's honoring the image of God in every person that's out there and giving them the dignity that everybody deserves, right?
It's not a coincidence that, things started in the garden, and here we are in the garden too.
And then, one of the original mandates is to tend the garden and take care of it, and this idea of bringing order out of chaos. And so here we are with people made in God's image that are doing some of the original tasks that God set for mankind, tending the garden and bringing order out of chaos.
When I come out there, again, it hasn't been that many times, but I will wander out there just to talk to some people. I'm very humbled at the garden engineers. There's one in particular that is just incredibly friendly. He remembers my name, and he hadn't seen me for 6 months. He remembers my name. And a few of the others, as I'm walking, coming and going, I'll just say hello, and just a huge smile on the individuals' faces just warms my heart. And it just says, you guys are doing the right thing for the right reason. But coming back to reality, I mean, it is a farm, and you are subject to farming risks.
Yep.
And that, I think, is also spoken about on your website. I mean, as we used to say, it hasn't happened yet that I know of, but the big white combine could come through, and all of a sudden we're done for the year. But obviously, there's maybe not that extreme, but it's a fact. Some years could be very productive, and some years could be, you get maybe one cucumber this year.
Yeah, and that's a reality.
Yeah,
I grew up on a farm, and I think I always joke with my dad about how, from day to day it's too much rain and then it's too little rain. I mean, it was Western North Dakota, so it's mostly not enough rain. Right. But then it would rain, and it's like, oh man, there's so much, we can't get out in the field. There's so much rain, and I'm starting to experience that now as an adult as well, where you kind of think like, man, I wish we had some rain. And then
is your dad still back at the farm?
My dad is still. I mean, it's taken him 10 years to retire,
right.
But he still lives on the home place. My brother's out there, is taking over. I think my dad offers a lot of advice to him.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, when you talk to your dad, I'll bet he has some good suggestions for you.
Yeah, sure.
How's this coming? How's that coming? Oh, don't ask.
Yep. My mom probably has more. She was the garden person as far as
sure.
being on the farm.
Right.
So
yeah,
she offers a lot of advice too, which is helpful.
Okay.
'Cause I didn't pay attention to a lot of that as a kid.
Well, let's talk a little bit about community partnerships, how people can get involved. Food that actually goes to some restaurants here in the area, volunteer groups. But why don't you just take that topic and just kind of run with that, Matt, for a couple minutes?
There's so many different ways. Like, there's a lot of, I've mentioned nonprofits that are fantastic in our community. There's a few that we have worked with, some companies that have worked with us. There's CNH has been great, and Great Plains Food Bank for a couple of years now. The three of us, CNH, Great Plains, and Farm in the Dell, we've done the program through CNH called Feeding Our Own Backyard, where they financially are going to help us to plant a certain amount of, and we've done potatoes and corn, and they bring a group from their office out to the farm, and Great Plains Food Bank comes out, and we have a planting day together, and then we take care of it, and then at the end of the season we have a big harvest day. And this year we donated over 10,000 pounds of sweet corn and potatoes to the Great Plains Food Bank through that partnership, which is super cool. Hope Blooms is a really cool organization in our area. We have a whole section of flowers.
Kelly's a dangerous person.
Yes. Wonderful.
She is.
Yeah, such a wonderful person. And we've had them come out and take as many flowers towards the end of the season as they can use, and spread those throughout the community. If we have more produce that's going out through our CSAs and community stuff, we're donating it to the emergency food pantry and the New Life Center and the Perry Center and all sorts of other places as well. So, and then there's some like Moorhead School District and West Fargo School District are we've been growing that partnership where they're really trying to get a farm to school lunch.
That makes sense.
And they've been really great to work with, and so they've been buying a lot of our produce. And it's kind of nice to have one spot that says like, we'll take 600 pounds of squash, so where you can get rid of, well, not get rid of, but pass on this squash to a place where it's benefit them, where they're going to use it. And it's homegrown, it's fresh, it's local, pesticide free. It's just an awesome product.
Yep.
And we're trying. We want to be competitive with other food products that are out there as well. We want people to come out to the farm. Like you've mentioned several times. Every time you come out, it's special.
It is.
The people you're meeting and just the sky and the openness and the quiet. It's a special place to be. So come out for the produce and then spend your time out there.
It's far enough out of town, roughly 4 or 5 miles north of any major area. So it's peaceful. You're not hearing semis going by or occasional crop duster going over. But that I wanted to just point out, you're technically not certified organic.
That is
but
true.
You do follow those practices.
Yeah, we're not spraying pesticides on our stuff, but we are not certified organic.
That has to be just a huge hurdle to
I think
to
there's
be
a
that.
lot of hoops to jump through for that, and some difficulties, and we just haven't gone down that route.
Yep.
So,
Well, let's wind this down a little bit. I usually say that, and 15 minutes later we do. But tell me about some of the public events going on. I mean, the You Pick Produce we have at that, but what is really cool is the Table to Farm dinners.
Yeah, so there's kind of three major things that we focus on. There's the You Pick, which really starts with strawberry season and goes throughout the year. And I'd encourage people to come out every week because the farm is going to change.
Yep.
Bring the kids out, explore a different part of the garden, pick a little bit of produce. You're not going to spend very much money in doing that. Like, it's free to come out to the garden and be there.
But
and if
there's
you
no
buy
admission fee.
5 pounds of cucumbers, then great, and then you got the cucumbers as well. So U-Picks is one of our big things that we love to have people out for. Our Table to Farm events, which I think most of the time you hear the term like farm to table, which is farm produce coming to your table, but we flip that around because we're bringing tables out to the farm. And so we set up tables right out in a farm, right in the aisles between the garden, and white tablecloths and fancy dishes and a 3-course meal made from produce at the farm, live music. It's a really neat event. It's ticketed and it limited to a certain amount of people. We'll have some community speakers come out and our garden engineers will share. It's a neat, fun, whether you come out on a date with your spouse, or you just come out and experience the farm for the first time and see what we're doing. It's a neat evening of fellowship and music, and hearing what the farm is about and having an amazing meal.
And just sitting out in God's creation, like I say, with hopefully the blue skies.
Yes, hopefully the blue skies, maybe with a little bit of shade, depending on the month that we're doing it.
A little bit of a breeze.
And a little breeze would also be nice. So,
right.
And then one other event we do is the Fall Festival. Okay. So that's towards the end of September. Right. That's more of a family-focused. I think we had over 700 people this last one that come out, and pumpkins and a maze and a barrel train and music and face painting and just a lot of fun for the kids and the family to come out and spend a couple hours out on the farm.
More community exposure. Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, how about maybe pick on one or two individuals, probably not by name, but just some people that have made an impact on you in the short period of time.
Yeah. So, I mean, you come into a job and you're like, okay, I'm coming in as the executive director, and I'm the boss. And
all you do is wear a suit and tie and walk around with a clipboard.
Right. And you come in and you start working alongside some of these garden engineers, and not knowing what it's going to be like. I didn't have a lot of experience in that area in my life, and working with individuals like that. And so you kind of wonder, what's it going to be like? And you start to find, like as a teacher, as I'm teaching in my job, like a lot of my coworkers are becoming my friends. Yeah. And so now on the farm setting, I'm even starting to get to the point where a lot of these engineers, these coworkers of mine I would call them friends.
Absolutely.
They're adults that are out there working hard, and they have every different type of personality that any person you would ever meet.
Yes.
Some of them are quiet introverts, that don't want any physical touch. Others are going to be the first one to welcome you and wrap their arms around you, give you a hug. And one individual in particular was just very kind, very outgoing. She's kind of gets into every group. Like if a group of visitors would come out or volunteers, she would come up and just kind of stand in the circle with them and introduce herself, and super compassionate also. Like she would notice if one of her coworkers wasn't doing very well, or maybe was getting hot or needed a drink of water, and she'd come alongside or let someone know, like, hey, I think,
and she is an engineer. Is that right?
She's an engineer.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Just very observant and compassionate of the people around her, and just so fun to be around. And there's so many stories like that. It's just, it's such a great group of individuals that are working out at the farm.
Right on. I guess, oh boy, what do you hope to do like within the next 5 years? Obviously, you've got a lot of more acreage that could grow, but you don't want to grow too fast.
Yeah. One of our goals, like right now, we are a really May through October.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned that.
Is we have employment out of the farm.
Right.
And then like our space is a big pole barn with a dirt floor. So it's not insulated, not heated. We do have bathrooms out there now, which are fantastic.
It's not that row of trees?
No, it's not. It's not the row trees, which we never had.
Oh, okay.
I should say that.
All
there
right.
were porta potties out there,
Okay.
but do have bathrooms, but we don't have office space. We don't have any gathering space or anything like that for the winter months.
I've seen your office space. It's like a couple of sawhorses with like a wooden
It
door on
actually,
top of it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, which is great because it's right in the midst of everything.
Yeah.
But so one of our goals is we would like to grow our growing season, make it longer.
Right.
We really like the agricultural aspect, the outside, the growing things. We think it really fits what we want to do. And so we're starting to look at a picnic shelter out there, first of all, for some shade and things like that in the summer months, and then possibly greenhouses where we can start growing things a little bit earlier. And then maybe we're getting the community to come out in the early spring to find some of their plants that they want to put in their own personal gardens, and just getting more community involvement early on in the year, and plus getting people out there sooner, and just we would love to be year round in some way and getting our engineers that experience.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, let's really seriously wind this up. For individuals who want more information about the farm, the website is just quite simply farmandthedellrrv.org. Phone number, if I have this right, Matt, is 218-593-3355. All of this information is on the website, but also these notes will also be on our podcast notes as well, too. But the address, I won't bother giving to you because you got to look it up. I've come to it in about 3 different ways. I found the paved way the most effective.
Yes.
But you can approach it many ways. But it's in North Moorhead, about 4 or 5 miles north of Walmart. I'll just put it kind of in that
that's
general
pretty close
in that general direction. But if somebody's listening, wants to help, we've talked about the CSAs, we've talked about volunteering. I guess, what do you recommend if somebody wants more information or wants to get involved? What do you recommend other than giving you a call?
Yeah, I think our website is a great resource.
It is.
It's pretty well done. It's pretty easy to navigate. There's some tabs up top that ask, get involved, see our produce, things like that. And you can sign up to volunteer. You can sign up to get a CSA, to donate, or even just find my email address and ask me a question.
Yep. It's kind of neat. You are incredibly accessible.
Yeah.
Like I said, you are the executive director, which, again, some people could misinterpret to wearing a suit and tie and shaking hands and raising money, which is important. But there's also a farm manager, too. That also helps with the engineers, I know.
Yep.
Is that safe to say?
Yep. It's really the two of us.
Team effort,
and so if you call that phone number, I'm probably answering the phone.
That's right.
Yeah. If you want to talk to me, call that number.
Please leave a message. All right. Any last minute things, Matt, that you need to get across that I've missed on?
I don't think so. I appreciate the time, and it's fun to talk about the farm and what we do, and as many people as we can get out there just to see who we are and what we do. It's valuable.
Absolutely. Well, very good, Matt. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And again, for your listeners, thank you for your time. And please give serious consideration to the Farm and the Dell. If you're not able to volunteer, do something out there. Take part in those CSAs. CSAs, yep, absolutely. I highly recommend it. The food is great. The people are great, too. So enjoy your day, folks. And thank you again for listening today.
Yeah,
Have a great
one.
much. You have been listening to More Than a Funeral, Voices of the Red River Valley. And I have been your host, Tom Pence, and I'm one of the funeral directors at Corsmo Funeral and Cremation Service here in Moorhead, Minnesota. The word service has been an intentional part of our name for over 66 years, and we pride ourselves on attention to detail and personal service. Personally, my responsibilities revolve around the advanced planning aspect of our profession, and I enjoy visiting with people as we discuss the many possibilities of a memorable celebration service that will eventually honor a life according to their wishes. And from a practical standpoint, which is getting so very important these days, I help families plan ahead so that the family left behind will not be burdened with a large financial responsibility. therefore allowing them to spend time with their family, remembering their loved one, not having to worry about how to handle the expenses. Asset protection is also a very real issue these days, as many care facilities can cost several $1,000s a month, depending upon the level of care. Corsmo can provide simple and effective ways of protecting those assets, and I welcome the opportunity to visit with you about that. If you enjoyed this podcast and found some value in it, we greatly appreciate your sharing with a friend. And if you have a moment, text somebody right now. Encourage them to give a listen and perhaps follow the podcast personally. We anticipate publishing a new episode on the first day of each month, so check back for interesting guests and topics. And of course, we also welcome your suggestions for future guests and topics of interest as well. So thank you for listening. And if you want more information and actually want some free estimates or just have questions, contact any of the directors at Corsmo Funeral and Cremation Service. Our phone number is 218-233-1533, and our web address is corsmofuneralservice.com. Thanks again for listening, and from all of us at Corsmo, have a great day.